spots burning. This one on Main and Alameda, and the other one near the intersection of 1st and Spring Street. So still tensions rising high as individuals continue to set fires here in the downtown area.
All right, this one a literal dumpster fire. The dumpster fire, of course, has become kind of a metaphor for a failure, a catastrophic failure amongst people who should know better. And so this is what we're seeing play out now in downtown Los Angeles. Of course, the fire that has really caught a lot of people's attention and has gone viral, really, the images were those Waymo cars that were set on fire during the protests. A number of them were kind of parked on the street. Remember, these are driverless vehicles, of course, so there was no person inside to kind of get them out or make a decision as to where they should go. They were sitting there, parked on the street, and as the protests and demonstrations were going on, someone set them on fire, and I believe it was 5 of them that actually burned to the ground. Bruce Thomas, our law enforcement expert, joining us now to talk about what we have seen thus far today and what we're seeing into tonight. And Bruce, I heard an interview with you earlier, and you were saying that what we could expect this evening was kind of what we're seeing here, is that there are going to be smaller groups of people who are really bent on destruction, who are going to go around causing as much mayhem as they can. That seems to be playing out.
Yeah, these are not the protesters we saw during the daytime who were, utilizing their First Amendment rights. Wow. Yeah, it did get out of control with the overpass on Spring Street, with the CHP vehicles, with the Waymo vehicles, like you said, over in Olvera Street area. But what we're seeing now these are anarchists. These are not law-abiding citizens. These are people that want to cause problems, and they've come into LA to do so.
Wow, and as you're saying that, we're watching somebody who was...
Saludos amigas y amigos que nos sintonizan a través de nuestro canal La Vida de Oseas. Tenemos imágenes en vivo de ABC, canal 7 de Los Ángeles. Las cosas se han complicado y las manifestaciones se han vuelto violentas. Como ustedes pudieron ver, están quemando vehículos, están haciendo daño a la propiedad privada. Y la policía de Los Ángeles ha informado en este momento que está haciendo decenas de arrestos y que no van a tolerar que hagan daño a la propiedad privada, como lo están haciendo. Miramos ahí los vehículos eléctricos, que los Waymo que quemaron ahí, y cientos de vehículos que ya han sido destruidos, y no se diga patrullas de la policía, de Los Ángeles Police Department, del Highway Patrol, del Sheriff, y eso han dicho no se va a tolerar. Así que les pedimos a la raza que no haga eso, porque van a haber investigaciones. Inclusive la persona que estaba apedreando las patrullas, ya hay una recompensa muy grande para el arresto de esa persona, así que no va a ir a parar a la cárcel usted. Está bien si se manifestó, pero ya esto ya hay que detenerlo, porque ya las cosas se han salido de control y usted puede estar en peligro, su familia está en peligro. Los dejo con las imágenes en vivo de ABC, canal 7 de Los Ángeles. El crédito a ellos, porque de ellos es, y gracias a ellos podemos también ver lo que está sucediendo en nuestra ciudad. Aquí las protestas están cerca de donde estamos nosotros, y imagínense, eso viene y nos perjudica a todos. No hagamos eso. Mejor retírese, no vaya a ir a terminar en la cárcel, porque las cosas se han puesto ya color de hormiga. Miren, ahí están los incendios y es terrible todo lo que está pasando. Así que no vale la pena. Sabemos de que estamos para apoyar la comunidad inmigrante, pero no para hacer daño, porque esto a nosotros, a todos, la raza nos va a afectar. Así que por favor no hagamos eso. No saque bandera de otro país. Cuando se manifieste, saque una bandera de Estados Unidos. Estamos en Estados Unidos, así que no hay necesidad de violentar esta situación. Así que pues tengamos cuidado. Los dejo con estas imágenes en vivo de ABC Canal 7.
Racing to the east, looks like maybe to the west. There he is now. Continuing to drive extremely erratically. I'm really worried that this person is going to drive so fast that he's going to run somebody over, because there's just so many pedestrians running around, so many people with their phones out. This guy's already hit multiple things. You see the bumper damage, almost hitting that vehicle head on, and people are continuing to throw rocks at him. This is Alameda and Cesar Chavez. I think that guy was trying to go up to the driver's door. More people throwing things at this vehicle. Again, we don't know the connection this vehicle has to this protest, if any, if he was just in the area and got upset, or if somebody may have hit the vehicle and that sparked him. But this appears to be an individual that is upset, is unstable, and is now driving at a high rate of speed around the Chinatown area and Olvera Street. We're going to continue to keep an eye on this one.
There he is right there. He has stopped. He has stopped occasionally. He was stopped by a bollard before. He ran into a barricade of some sort. And he's not out yet. He did open the door. There was a lot of front end damage to this minivan. We're going to watch this play out, but look at the speed. Even when he backs up, he's backing up fast. He's hitting the gas pedal hard. There are people out in front of him.
Oh,
my
no.
God.
Oh,
okay.
no. I thought he was going to hit the motorcycle.
It looked like he was aiming for him.
Yeah. Yeah. This person is clearly upset and just driving erratically, not in any sort of mental state. That's going to be a part of Union Station, and I'm not sure if we're able to get Air 7 on the other side of that, but we may. Okay, that's the vehicle right there.
I want to bring in
and around. Yep.
I want to bring in Bruce Thomas because you're watching this too, and this just, if things weren't bad enough.
This may be an enclosed area. This may be some kind of a... those are the railroad tracks.
But this guy is definitely out of control beyond what normally you would think.
Yeah, and oh my gosh, he's putting a lot of people in danger here. We don't know his motive. All we know is that he's driving really fast. He appears at various times to have been aiming at people with this minivan. People have been throwing rocks and bricks and all kinds of things at him. As he's gone through intersections. He was doing reverse donuts in an intersection and going very, very rapidly. He's going through these downtown streets now. It's kind of a maze, kind of a warren of streets, some of them one way, some of them very narrow. He's right by the railroad tracks here.
That's the tracks.
And it's frightening to see. It's just one of the many unsettling things we have been watching throughout this day and this evening when there have been protests of ICE raids.
Vignes and Botchet.
Vignes and Bochet down in downtown Los Angeles. This is kind of near I believe the men's central jail, the men's central jail down there that's used by LA County. And there he goes. Now, luckily, he's on a street. It's one of those back streets. It's small. And we don't know. We'll have to see if he's trying to make his way back toward the demonstrations to see what his motive may be.
Yeah, he's over by Catasaurus Plaza by Cesar Chavez. He's over in that complex there.
Mm-hmm. And
he's definitely out of control.
And as Gabe mentioned, the LAPD is aware of him. They know that he's doing this, and they're going to try to. I don't know if they're going to try to get him. Who's going to be available to do it? We talked about the resources that have been stretched so thin for the LAPD as they deal with the unrest that's happening in downtown LA. Who's available to chase this guy? I don't think anyone is, at least at the moment where we're seeing it. And do they want to? Do they want to chase him when he's running through these streets at such high rates of speed?
For safety's sake, Mark, they definitely would want to be involved in this. The problem is, I don't think they have the resources right now.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, again, if you're just joining us, Eyewitness News continuing our coverage of the demonstrations, the violence, the charges and countercharges by officials at the federal, state, and local level about the ICE raids and about the federal response, the local response, and what people are doing out in the streets. And in the middle of that, of our reporting of that, we are seeing this man behaving very erratically in this minivan. We're not sure if he's either targeting the protesters or if he's one of them, but it appears, at least, that he is in some way unhinged. He doesn't have a shirt on. He's driving this minivan at very high rates of speed. There's significant damage. There have been a few collisions with various inanimate objects. No people that we know of yet. No vehicles that we know of yet. But it's only, I think, by sheer luck that hasn't happened. As we see him now continuing, Gabe, can you give us an indication of what street he's on?
Yeah, Mark, this is Cesar Chavez. He appears to be northbound on Cesar Chavez on Gallardo Street. And, you know, we've seen situations to almost purposefully hit other drivers, and that's the really scary part here. We are actually switching out helicopters, so you're going to see my picture and the helicopter that I'm in get a little further away, and we have our other Air 7 on the scene as well, trying to locate this vehicle, but it is definitely a scary situation for anybody that's in the downtown area right now.
Right, in addition to everything else that's happening, and just to recap, there were planned demonstrations this afternoon beginning at 2 o'clock at LA City Hall. There was another demonstration happening this afternoon and into the early part of the evening at the federal complex, the federal building in downtown Los Angeles, just a few blocks away from LA City Hall. Those demonstrations merged this afternoon into about 1,000 people and growing as the day wore on. And that came amid word, of course, that the National Guard troops that were activated and federalized by the Trump administration, by the president, were moving into Los Angeles to, in his words, restore law and order. The LAPD has been dealing with this and responding. The LA County Sheriff's Department has been dealing with this and responding as well. We heard earlier from the Chief of Police. One of the things that was very important that he mentioned was that there were claims in the initial hours of the first evening of the demonstrations, when things were starting to get out of hand, that when ICE and federal agents were requesting help from the LAPD, that the LAPD did not respond or delayed responding for 2 hours. The chief saying
el conductor de un vehículo, han dicho las autoridades, que estaba manejando peligrosamente entre medio de las manifestaciones y se ha desatado una persecución en todo lo que es el área del sur de Los Ángeles. Al día de viernes que estuve también transmitiendo desde el edificio cerca del downtown Los Ángeles, un vehículo entró entre medio de la manifestación también a alta velocidad, y esto es muy peligroso, que vaya a arrollar a los manifestantes, y que pues le pedimos mejor que se retire a la raza, que se retiren de estos lugares, porque ya están haciendo arrestos. La Guardia Nacional ha sido desplegada en el sur de Los Ángeles y no van a tolerar que estas manifestaciones continúen con esa violencia que han desatado.
Officers, but the chief saying emphatically the LAPD did not ignore the call for help on that night. Also saying that, here we go, looking at this driver here. This was playing out about 6 or 7 minutes ago. This guy going through, it looked like he was it really looks like he was targeting folks and trying to hit them with his vehicle. But we don't know. We do know that the crowd was very angry at him, judging by what we're seeing in response, all the projectiles being thrown at him. And then he took off. And he then went down the street. You see he's got no shirt on. He's throwing stuff out of the vehicle. I guess some of it looks like one of the windows got shattered by one of the bricks or rocks. And look at the speed with which he left that scene. Later on, we saw him just driving erratically, again, heading into Olvera Street, running into a traffic control bollard. And okay, is that the vehicle there on the left? That's it. All right. Do we know whether the guy is in there? Oh, yeah, there he's coming out. What's he got in the back? He's looking into the back of that minivan. We don't know. If we have a location, at least we can put this out on our air. And if someone is going to try to, Savannah and First Street, in East First Street in downtown Los Angeles. Again, Savannah and East First Street in downtown LA. This is where that minivan driver has come to a stop. He's opened up the back and he's stepping away. Still, as far as we can tell, with no shirt on. There's no night sun here because there's no LA helicopter, LAPD or law enforcement helicopter to light up the scene or the vehicle, but he did walk across the street. I don't know in which direction he is walking because we can't really orient ourselves in the dark. He's getting into a second vehicle. Getting into another vehicle is what we're being told. Oh, there he is. Oh, there they are. Officers now responding. These are sheriff's deputies. They're putting him in custody right now. There he goes. That is the end of that escapade. We don't know if anyone got hurt. We lost track of him for a while. We don't know if anybody got hit. We don't know if he hurt anyone or whether he was actually trying to hurt someone. It certainly did look at one point that he was swerving toward somebody on a bicycle and trying to hit them, but he did not, that we saw. Bruce, this is just an amazing thing that's unfolding here, given everything else that's going on.
Yeah, for this guy to be driving like that is just dangerous beyond. I'm glad to see that the sheriffs have been requested and are responding to LAPD's request for help. My only question would be, what took so long? Clearly, LAPD was overmatched. And when you declare mutual aid, you get the bigger agency, LA County Sheriffs, which in the scheme of things, they are actually in charge of a civil unrest.
El sospechoso ya fue puesto en custodia. Pudimos ver una patrulla del departamento del sheriff que llegó y lo detuvo. Estaba hablando con una persona que se acercó a él. Ya está bajo custodia, pero puso en peligro la vida de los manifestantes, como ustedes vieron, haciendo donas en medio de la manifestación, y el carro ya todo destruido. Terrible lo que está aconteciendo. Es terrible. Así que mejor usted, amiga y amigo, retírese. No vaya a esas áreas donde están pasando esos problemas, excepto los medios de comunicación que están cubriendo todo esto. Así que el crédito para ABC Canal 7, que está transmitiendo en vivo en este momento de lo que está aconteciendo en el sur de Los Ángeles.
Is the minivan that guy was driving. They've cleared it. There's thus far, I think there was one other deputy who went through and saw that there was no one else inside the vehicle, but they're going to check it for other things, perhaps weapons, contraband, or anything else that would indicate danger or perhaps have a clue to what his motive was. So in addition to all the unrest, in addition to all the things that are happening, fires being set, officers being attacked, all of that, in addition to that, we had this guy driving erratically through downtown LA, putting a lot of people at risk, including police, demonstrators, everyone, bystanders, and he is now under arrest thanks to the LA County Sheriff's Department. The LAPD having its hands full dealing with what has been happening throughout the day and into the night. Some 10 arrests thus far. We know that number is going to go up. They've been focusing, as the chief mentioned, on clearing intersections, clearing streets, getting people out of areas where they can cause damage or injure people. And the effort to arrest those people will be ongoing. They're going to focus on people who have been attacking police officers, attacking innocent people, and vandalizing buildings and vandalizing police vehicles as well. They're going to focus on that. They're going to, in particular, perhaps on the people who were throwing projectiles and bird scooters off of the bridge onto the 101 freeway and damaging those highway patrol vehicles and putting officers there at risk. And the people who've been blockading streets are going to do a lot of that, so that you can expect, as they comb through the video that's going to be everywhere after this event has wound down, they're going to be combing through all of that, and they're going to find people. This is a tactic they've been using actually since 1992 and perhaps before that. In the LA riots of 1992, people were arrested a year later, some of them, for actions that were taken during that civil unrest period. Because they were caught on video, and video even more prevalent now. So you can expect a lot of people who think they got away with things tonight are going to find out that they have not. LA Mayor Karen Bass. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Bruce.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to ask, I don't know if Air 7 HD can pull in over by City Hall, but it appears that the Sheriff's Mobile Field Force is doing some sort of operation by City Hall, possibly pushing a crowd further away.
Okay.
I saw some of their trucks and some of them launching less lethal and flashbang.
Okay, let's take a look. What you're looking at here, these are highway patrol vehicles that are kind of securing that bridge over, I believe that's a bridge over the 101 freeway. Let's go get closer to City Hall if we can and see if what Bruce is mentioning is actually happening. That would be a mutual aid situation, and we're going to see if there is a skirmish line. We see that fire, the dumpster fire that is there. Maybe are they forming around that to try to move these people out? Let's tilt down a little bit with the camera and see what we're looking at. All right, we just saw that appears to be fireworks that are being launched in some way by people against the officers. I do not see a skirmish line here, but let's take a look and see if there are other indications of a mutual aid response by the LA County Sheriff's Department that would help to clear these intersections and get some of these people out that are up to no good out here setting fires and the like. So we're going to keep an eye on that. Bruce, thanks for the tip. We're going to look for it. In the meantime, we want to tell you what the mayor has been saying, speaking earlier today about the need for these protests to be peaceful.
First of all, I think protests need to be peaceful, period. And any time it deteriorates into violence, that is a problem, and it absolutely messes with the overall message. That's not peaceful, what was happening. It's not peaceful for people to be on the highways. It's not peaceful for people to throw rocks or bottles. That's not peaceful. And if you are going to entertain violence, if you are going to try to take over a freeway, then you are going to suffer the consequences of doing that. I don't think that LAPD, the sheriff, and certainly not myself, are not shying away from statements like that.
The mayor adamant that law breaking will not be tolerated. The chief saying that earlier today as well, also saying that at the moment, at least as the evening was unfolding, that the department, at least in this area, was overwhelmed. And that's his word. So we're going to see whether the National Guard is going to have any effect on what's happening here. You're seeing that commercial grade fireworks that the chief talked about that are being deployed, or being not deployed, but fired. Some of that has been fired against his officers, and he spoke about the fact that that can actually kill you if it hits you. And so there is a lot going on that they are having to deal with. And the question of whether the National Guard is needed, the chief indicated that the first two nights they hadn't gotten to the point where they would have called them, but tonight he would have to reassess and decide or look at whether that was a necessary part of the mix. It's the numbers of people involved in this have dwindled quite a bit. There were several thousand outside City Hall that were marching around and then marching to the federal detention center in downtown LA, in the federal building. Several thousand people were there. Those numbers have dropped away to what must be a few hundred, perhaps, maybe less than that are going from one location to another, scattering around. As soon as police form a skirmish line and move them out, they go somewhere else. And what we're seeing now is some people setting fires, putting up barricades, trying to close down intersections. But the numbers of people causing trouble is about, I would say, Bruce, maybe starting to match the numbers of law enforcement people who are out there, and that may turn the tide in favor of the police. If at least if the numbers are dwindling, maybe they can get a handle on this. Bruce, you still with us? I think we've...
the numbers are kind of equaling out. They were overwhelmed earlier today and this afternoon, but I think now that you also have the sheriffs there, the manpower pool for law enforcement is greatly increased, and they can take back some of these streets. And maybe we will see a curfew later on. I don't know.
Yeah, that was a question that was asked during the press conference, whether a curfew would be implemented in LA. The chief said that he had spoken with Sheriff Luna about the possibility of a curfew being implemented, but none has been implemented thus far. It would take an action by the LA County supervisors and the LA City Council to implement a curfew, both city and or county-wide. And that certainly has been done in the past in situations where things have gotten out of hand. Just if you're out on the streets after 10 o'clock at night or whatever time it is, you are subject to arrest, and that certainly is a tool that allows law enforcement to put an end to scenes like we're seeing here, where this fire is being set in the middle of this intersection, a food truck driving by. But what we're seeing, I guess, is with the numbers dwindling, as you mentioned, the law enforcement agencies that are responding are in a better position to get a handle on this. But we should note, the LAPD and the Sheriff's Department, both well below full strength. Officers are retiring and or leaving both departments faster than they can be replaced. And along with that, there are budget constraints that are causing a real strain on police resources and police availability. We've been doing stories about how the Sheriff's Department is suffering. Their people are being so overtaxed that it's affecting their alertness. They're having to work so many hours and so many days and so many shifts that it is starting to affect them physically and mentally. And there's a real concern about both the LAPD officers, the rank and file, and the Sheriff's Department rank and file about whether they can deal with too many more incidents such as these. And then you have the budgetary concerns, both the city and the county, both having to make severe budget cuts, caused in large part by the response to the fires that we had in January that really put a hole in the budgets of both governments. And you really there's not much room to deal with this sort of thing. They're going to deal with it, but it's going to affect other things much later on. That's a story for another night. In the meantime, ABC News reporter Matt Gutman, he was out there as well behind the police lines earlier today, showing us the projectiles that were being fired and or launched by both sides in these clashes.
That line of officers from the LAPD pushing everybody back and using a tremendous amount of non-lethal force. You can see those flashbang canisters, the sponges, 40 millimeter like this, that they've fired at people just to continue to push them back. I don't think I've seen this much use of non-lethal in a very long time. We've also seen significant number of rocks, bottles, projectiles that are very dangerous being hurled at the LAPD on this side of the skirmish line. The size of the rocks and projectiles, I'm going to see if I can try to find another one for you, that were thrown were significant. This is a piece of concrete or road that was picked up and chucked. You can see some of the sharper end stones over here, much larger ones than that were hurled at police. So this is something that I haven't seen quite some time in downtown LA. It was very intense.
Indeed, and it's not something that you would expect to see in downtown LA, and we'll get to that in a second. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's comments threatening to deploy U.S. Marines on U.S. soil drew a small group of protesters. You see them there. This is at Camp Pendleton. More than 46 people there holding up signs at the main gate to Camp Pendleton with slogans such as, quote, "We're on a slippery slope to fascism," and "Your oath is to the Constitution." President Trump has already federalized and deployed those National Guard troops to L.A. after the protests erupted over the immigration raids on Friday. This coming despite strong objection from the governor of California and the mayor of Los Angeles. In fact, the Newsom administration is going to file a lawsuit perhaps as early as tomorrow to try to prevent that from happening. In the meantime, Patrick Saunders, he's an Air Force veteran. He organized this protest outside Camp Pendleton.
We want to show our support to the military members that work here. We want to kind of remind them of what their duty is to us, but additionally we want to make it very publicly known that we condemn any sort of action by the administration of using active duty or National Guard troops on U.S. citizens.
U.S. Northern Command confirms 500 Marines from 29 Palms are on what's called prepare to deploy status. That means they're ready to go should they be needed, and quote, to augment and support the DOD's protection of federal property and personnel efforts. And there's a live look now at downtown Los Angeles. Still spot fires here and there. Still groups of people gathering mainly at intersections, either blocking them, barricading them, or setting fires. There have been some continued skirmishes with police, and there was a guy in a minivan that started driving around erratically and nearly took some people out. He's under arrest. Some 10 other people, at least, that we know of as of earlier this evening are under arrest by the LAPD. 17 others arrested by the Highway Patrol. Both of those numbers are expected to go up as we continue to watch the law enforcement response to the unrest that is taking place in Los Angeles. I'm joined now by Jory Rand. You've been covering this all day, and you've kind of watched this evolve throughout the day. And what did you notice, and what struck you?
It seems that tensions are rising and falling as we go throughout the day, and it seems like there's a group of troublemakers who, when things are calming down, they start things back up again. We see things calm down, then we see 5 Waymo cars lit on fire. We see that start to calm down. We see a barricade situation with furniture grabbed from Grand Park. We see that calm down, and then we see protesters all over the city starting fires. This gentleman, that's something I've never seen before. Typically, when we see a gathering like this, you do see people start to treat this like a street takeover and start doing donuts. So when you first see that, you just think that person is part of it. They clearly were not, as they drew the attention of those gathered there and then took off through the city in what we have seen. But again, it is a group of people who have been allowed to do this. We saw the protesters who were on the overpass of the 101 freeway. Once the 101 was cleared and it looked like order had been restored, those people were allowed to stay on top of the 101 freeway, and they started pouring things on top of those CHP vehicles that were parked below, and that was allowed to continue for hours. Now,
that was a mistake, clearly, by law enforcement. You don't leave people, maybe they didn't have the resources. I shouldn't say it was a mistake, but it turned out it didn't work well.
It did not work out well, and you look at the numbers of the protesters out there, the numbers of law enforcement, and what happens if they decide to go in and make a move on these people. What's going to happen? Is that going to start a really violent confrontation with authorities? Is that going to start a panic where you start sending people running through a situation where you have a potential trampling of a crowd? It's a very tough situation for them to be in, and the fact that they left those vehicles exposed and the protesters in place on the overpass made it for a very disastrous situation.
It is a thin line between enforcement and provocation. It is a line that the LAPD and other local police agencies have trod, sometimes successfully, sometimes catastrophically badly, for decades, dating back to 1965.
And
Watts riots.
It's actually been impressive to see some of the restraint we've seen from these different jurisdictions, because they have been under siege all day with projectiles and bottles and rocks and fireworks and smoke canisters, and very little response from the LAPD. Very few arrests. We've talked about, 27 throughout the day from 2 different jurisdictions. There could easily have been hundreds of arrests given the behavior we have seen on the streets of Los Angeles.
What they're trying to do is get the streets cleared, restore order as quickly as possible and as thoroughly as possible. They're having trouble doing that tonight because the crowd is dispersing and going from place to place. If, as Bruce Thomas mentioned, a retired law enforcement officer, if that mutual aid response is now in effect and taking effect, you'll see other agencies coming in and providing the manpower, providing the bodies, basically to go out and take ground and hold it, as opposed to take ground and then having to move somewhere else and losing the ground that they've taken. So that's what's hopefully a helpful development in this, as we watch live now what's happening in downtown LA. These are pictures from Air 7, Spring Street and 2nd Street. That vehicle there that's on the side of the road, I don't know if that has been vandalized and is immobile because of that, or whether someone is parking there and doing it deliberately. What we are seeing, and the chief mentioned these people that go from place to place, and they cause mayhem, they cause problems, and they are dressed in hoodies, they're dressed in black, and they bring hammers and they chip at the concrete, and that's where they get their rocks from. I was going to mention that when we talked about what Matt Gutman was reporting about the rocks that were being thrown by police. If you're walking around downtown LA, there aren't rocks scattered around. These people are manufacturing these projectiles by bringing hammers and hammering at the concrete and the asphalt and taking what chips away and throwing it at police. We have Brian Mueller, who's a retired law enforcement officer here in Southern California. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. So you have seen how things have unfolded tonight. What is your take on how the different law enforcement agencies are responding and whether it's been effective?
They do a lot of training together. It does take some time to muster up enough personnel to be effective and not be overwhelmed. The crowds are obviously a lot larger than the number of officers that are available. Obviously, as you guys know, each agency has a different jurisdiction, and therefore it tends to change who is in command of a certain area. It's in the city, it's LAPD, it's parts of LA County is in the middle of the city, like Grand Park and a few of the county buildings, it's Sheriff's Department. And obviously, as we all saw, right next to that, the 101.
Atención para todos los que no tienen una emergencia de salir a la calle, no salgan, porque van a estar arrestando a todos los que anden en la calle ya a partir de la entrada a la noche, así que es mejor que se retiren a casa, no se involucren en problemas, no es así que se busca una solución. Las manifestaciones pacíficas son respaldadas por la Constitución, pero cuando ya se vuelven violentas no lo son y pueden ir a parar a la cárcel. Van a haber un sinfín de arrestos después de todo esto, porque van a haber investigaciones que van a seguir su curso después, así que no termine usted en la cárcel por algo que no le va a beneficiar de nada, ni va a ayudar en nada. Que Dios me los bendiga, que Dios me los guarde, y recuérdense que el que tiene el control es Dios. Sin Él, verdaderamente no somos nada. Que Dios les bendiga a todos, y Dios bendiga también a los medios de comunicación, a ABC, Canal 7, que ha estado transmitiendo en vivo de lo que está aconteciendo. Bendiciones a todos, saludos, gracias por apoyarnos en la vida de Oseas. Gracias, que Dios les bendiga.